Hey there, I'm Tracy Rigdon, and this is the Contrast Project Lounge podcast. Often random, but always relevant, always real, and practically nothing is off limits. This podcast is for you. Are you ready for this? Let's do it. Welcome back to the program, guys, and thank you so much for joining us on another edition of Wednesday Night Live of the Contrast Project Lounge podcast with my co-host, Mr. Charles Gaskins. Charles, how you doing? Yeah. You know, Charles. You know, we got a really good show scheduled tonight. Our guest tonight is Mr. John Meeks. John, how are you doing, buddy? And thanks for being here.
It's a pleasure to be here. Greetings, salutations, and also, my heart lives in Riverside. I lived on a Cherry Street by the library years ago when I first started in 2002. So, and also, I've attended Unity Church of Jacksonville on Lomax Street since I was a child in the 1980s. So, my 5 points in Riverside are truly in my soul.
Well, that's good. You know, and a lot of people that have never lived there, I've never lived in 5 Points of Riverside, but it's always been part of my stomping grounds throughout the years. Back in the days when I worked with Shelton over at Folio, spent a lot of time in the Riverside area and downtown, the urban core, that kind of thing. That was where most of the people we used to talk to. I used to meet with people all the time to talk business over at Moss Fire Grill. Love that place. Used to love it.
Great place. I love their crab cakes.
Yeah.
I'm kind of fond of their Bloody Marys.
I like the old fashions too. The bar upstairs is like bar none, like chef's kiss.
Oh yeah.
Agreed. Yes.
Oh yeah. Listen, let's go ahead and jump right in, John. What was it? Before we start, I noticed that you are a United States Air Force veteran, and
Yes, sir.
from one veteran to another, thank you for your service.
My pleasure.
My father was in the Air Force, so yeah.
Yeah, my
You
dad
got
was
the
named
balloons
again.
again.
His father was Army Air Corps. So it's part of our heritage.
Oh yeah. Yeah, my father was in the Navy, and most of my uncles were in the Army. I was in the Army. Yep.
So thank you for your service as well. Definitely.
You're quite welcome. Listen, speaking of the military, what was it that first drew you out of the military into journalism and teaching, and how did that transition, affect or challenge you?
Well, it's quite a journey I had, because I first wanted to be a journalist so badly. I was always like needling the people, the Times Union Journal. I remember I would sometimes call and pick their brains as a junior high school student. And I was
Yeah.
active in the yearbook and newspaper staffs in junior high school and high school. But honestly, my path was unique because I went to college as a journalism major at South Georgia College in Douglas, Georgia. And I was 17 years old. And I was thrown into like a washing machine of running a newspaper. Keep in mind, I was a liberal Democrat running the newspaper at South Georgia College in Douglas, outside of Waycross, endorsing Clinton in 1992. And mind you, I was taking over from a newspaper editor who was very right wing, and the advisor looked at me and says, "You got your work cut out for you, boy." And I'm like, "I know I do," and I don't want to like linger on too much, but I remember one time we were driving to a conference in Athens, Georgia, and my professor and I were looking at the countryside, and she started getting really salty. And I said, "Miss Strickland, why are you getting salty?" She says, "This is where Sherman burnt down my family's property." But you know what? Deep down inside, I was rejoicing. I'm like, dude, do you realize you're siding with the losers? But that's okay. Because I have to mind that, diversity includes sometimes people are wrong in their ideas, right? And trust me, she hated the Kennedys. I mean, she gave me a ration of doo-doo because I work with kids and keep my language clean. But to be honest, I was a loner pretty much coming through because I started kindergarten at age 4 and I got into college at age 17, and neither parent went to college, so I was really finding my way in my life, in my college career. And I started at 17 years old with already student loans. 17. Imagine, I'm a minor. and they're starting my life off as a human being with student loans. Um, so I was hoping to transfer to UNF, which I did. I was news editor at the Spinnaker, and that was lovely. But when I graduated, where am I going to work? And that's where the military came in, because to be honest, unpaid internships don't pay off the student loans, right? And that's what they give me. It's like, oh, let's network, and you can like work for peanuts, and you got a loan debt on your back from 17 years old. So I said, look, I'm going to serve our country. And I was inspired because I was working as a temp for some years in the 90s, and I went to a Veterans Day parade at random, and it clicked in me that why am I, working these, odd jobs, not making any sense for myself or humanity. And I said to myself, I said, let's ask Dad. He's Navy. I said, Dad, should I join the Navy? He goes, no, if I do it ever again, I join the Air Force. And that's what, well, I ended up in the Air Force. And once again, fate intervened because I could have been a media person because I was journalism majored, mind you, in college. But I was still in my 20s, and I said, look, recruiter, can I join the Air Force as a media person? I said, like, well, you got to wait about 6 months. But if you join now, we'll just give you whatever. You know how that is? You find out your job when you get out of basic training. And I ended up being a medic, mind you. And remember, I sucked at math. I barely meddled through in science. So it was lovely for them to have me working in a hospital. But I learned how to drive an ambulance. That was fun, because you imagine the privilege you have driving through traffic, in Dover, Delaware with an ambulance, at least on base. I was and life comes at you fast. Ferris Bueller was right. Ferris Bueller was totally right. I ended up working in the Air Force, doing a lot of lab reports and OSHA regulations, EPA regulations, and making sure that our soldiers or airmen, were ready for mobilization. Like we tested for gas masks.
Oh,
I
yeah.
took my work very seriously. Dover, Delaware was the place where that was the final place where we had our men and women who lost their lives overseas or anywhere. They came through our base, through our mortuary, and a touching moment was when the coal disaster happened. We were out there to receive the bodies of those who were killed. A lot of things I still don't want to talk about because it just hurts me. And
Understandable.
the path to teaching came through Dover, Delaware, because I was lazy. I wanted some time out of the office because I wanted to, not be in the office. And when the offers came in to do taxes for people, I'll be a tax preparer, it's like gets me out of the office. Then they said, well, junior achievement's knocking on the door, we'll give you some leave days in exchange for you volunteering. They said the magic word there, time off in exchange for me helping these kids.
Yeah.
At first, I'm thinking, kids, I don't want to be in school anymore. I did my time. I served my penance as a student. However, when I walked in that classroom in my uniform, my dress blues, the kids stood up. These were 5th grade kids, and like, wow, I'm a lowly E3. You don't have to sit down. But the respect that I got from them and their love of learning said to me, it's like, maybe I want to do some teaching, because they were there to receive and I was there to give. And it was a connection that I made that this was 2001 and it was time for me to re-up. And I'm like, no, thanks. I think
Yeah.
I found my path. But once again, fate intervenes because down the road, 9/11 happens,
Yeah.
And my
Yeah.
unit goes into my unit from Dover, Delaware had to address the anthrax scare. And gosh knows, if anyone could ever pray for anybody, I had to pray for my friends from my office who had to go down there and respond to that, because that could have been me. And I don't take that for granted. I started substitute teaching. That's when I moved to Riverside. I moved to Riverside in March 2001 and lived on Cherry Street, corner of Cherry and Park Street, nice little fourplex by the library. And I started subbing. And I started subbing at Baldwin and started subbing at various schools around the county. And then it just hit me. It's like, this is where I need to be. I should have known that because my grandfather was a junior high school teacher, and I made that connection when I called my grandfather when I decided to get hired on to teach full time. He said, and that's where the union comes in. He says, did you join the union? Did you join the union, boy? And I'm like, of course I did. Of course. I mean, solidarity is a way of life. And this is one of those clarion calls for me. that when he said, "Did you join the union?" I said, "Of course I did," because looking back on my life, working conditions matter. Working people are people, damn it. Pardon my French. But when we
You can say whatever the fuck you want here, don't worry.
thank you, thank you. But when we treat our workers with respect, we can understand that radiates to their family, radiates to their neighborhood, radiates to the community. When we have high morale, the production is better and our connections are better. Because I grew up, my mom would come home from work on a daily basis. She hated her job. She hated it because they abused her on a daily basis. And as a
Hmm.
child, I felt helpless to see help her to solve her problems. So coming up in the workplace, when I started teaching, and I said, "Would I join a union?" Of course. My grandfather was a union rep in Detroit, Michigan for 20 years, and it clicked with me. But sometimes I'm not good at math, but there was this moment where everything clicked together. It's like, look, I'm going to teaching. I can pick up my grandfather's, torch as an educator, but also as an advocate for the working conditions in the classroom for our
Hmm.
fellow brothers and sisters in the classroom. Because I don't want it. What's funny is I'm going to tell you this. I guarantee that each and one of you out there has one coworker of your mom or dad that you want to square off with, because every time they come from work, they talk crap about that coworker or that boss or that manager or executive.
Hmm.
But the thing is that they couldn't cuss out their boss. So when they came home, they came and took it out on you, you know? The
Yeah.
bosses don't see that when you put negative energy on your workers, it's going out on their kids. So gosh darn it. How dare you say that corporate values are family values when you know you're abusing and raping your workers on a daily basis and you send them home to put that trauma on their kids and you're feeding the negativity in this universe? How dare you? And that's why I'm an advocate with the union, because I want to make sure that my mothers and fathers in the classroom can go home and have a clear mind to raise their families properly. And that's what family values is about.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Now you mentioned, and you just went there and answered it. You mentioned, solidarity is a way of life. And so now you're very active in the union locally. And, what do you see as some of the biggest now I know where some of them are, but what do you see as a union rep or an advocate for the teachers union? What do you see as some of your biggest challenges ahead of you going through into 2025 and us putting up with this current administration?
All politics are local. All
Absolutely.
politics are local. I am sick and tired of people who disengage simply because they lost the presidential election. There is so much more to our fundamental existence as a society beyond national politics. Remember this. Remember this. When President Obama was elected in 2008, his opponents did not go into the shadows and hide in self pity and self shame. They galvanized and they built a movement that gradually grew over. And not to mention, this is part of a movement of theirs that dated back to the Reagan years, to where they built a
I think
grassroots
you can say
movement
Reagan,
on
yeah.
the local and state levels. This did not happen overnight when a certain party took over Tallahassee. This was a building movement that people were caught sleeping on this movement, and we're still sleeping on this movement. I am so inspired at the high school students who spoke at the city council meeting this past week. And I ask you,
Yeah.
if you are one of those people that showed up at city council, please do not be discouraged, because you know from the bottom of your heart that you are going to be change makers down the road. But we have to build a movement. We cannot just wait till 2028 to make a difference. We have to start today, block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood, community by community, to build density for change. Because right now they're not listening because they know we don't vote. They
Hmm.
know we don't speak out. And the thing is, we have our excuses. But remember, I think Shirley Chisholm said, even though we don't engage in politics, we don't believe in politics, well, politics will still have their way with us regardless of our involvement or apathy or
Hmm.
complacency. And we have to find a way. It doesn't have to be showing up at all the city council meetings. It can show up as an email, a text, social media, phone calls, but we cannot be afraid to keep being the resistance. The resistance is strong if we keep our eyes on the prize on the local, state, and national levels. And that
Hmm.
includes educating ourselves. We cannot wait to be spoon fed the facts. Because I've
Right.
been spoon feeding a lot of people, and I don't mind that. But I'm asking that if I spoon feed you, you spoon feed six other people, and they spoon feed 8 other people, and it's got to multiply. It can't just stop with the messengers. We are all messengers. And keep in mind, and I'm being biblical, look at Gideon's army. For my friends who are the Christian persuasion or the people of faith, understand our union movement is about a movement of light and truth and ensuring that we have a better world for that works for all. And look at the story of Gideon. If you are a faith-minded person, please look at the story of Gideon. I gave a lesson on that Unity Church of Jacksonville a few years back. And remember, we've got to start setting the world on fire with a single spark from each of us. We can make a difference. I know we can.
Right, right. From your seat in the classroom, how have you seen civics education evolve or be threatened in Florida in the short time that you've been teaching? I say short time because
Well, thank you, thank you. I'm a grandpa to some of my kids. Matter of fact, I have a grand student because one of my former students, she was there my first year in the classroom. Her son is now taking classes at our school. So
nice.
thank you for making me feel midlife crisis is over officially. Thank you for you rejuvenating me. What was the question again? I got caught up in my getting it.
Well, from your seat in the classroom, in the time that you've been teaching in the classroom formatively, how have you seen civics education evolve or be threatened in Florida?
Well, I have not said this in a public venue before, but I'm going to say I told you so. When I first, I'm not to you, not to you, but I'm going to say I told you so to people in general. Because I recall when I first started teaching in the state of Florida, I was a 7th grade geography teacher. And I was very happy teaching our children about the world around them and how we interact with the different elements of geography. When it was proposed in a 3 or 4 governors ago of all the same party, wink, wink, they said, let's bring civics in the classroom. And you can ask anybody who knows me that my spidey senses went off. And you can quote me on that. And you can say that to anybody in the world because I said this. I have a reluctance to see civics in middle school because I feel that there's going to be a gateway to subjectivity in teaching civics.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say it again. There's going to be an opening for subjectivity. I don't mind teaching about 3 branches of government, but once it starts creeping into America first, once it starts creeping into let's be handmaids for capitalism, when we start delving into we're going to decide that anything about government that offends us should be swept under the rug, or anything that makes us feel guilty about us swept under the rug.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to see the Charlie Johns Committee taught in Florida schools, going back
Right.
to the red baiting and the homophobia in Florida schools. But it
Yeah.
was part of our history. It's part of our government. But
Yeah.
the thing is I'm a big picture kind of guy. I'm all or nothing. I think it's a Frank Sinatra song, one of my favorites. But I'm all or nothing. And that's why I chose not to teach civics. Because if I'm not going to teach all of civics, I'm not going to teach any civics, in my personal opinion. Because it does a disservice to the state. Because, of course, when you get hired to teach in the state of Florida, or any state for that matter, you do take an oath of loyalty of sorts. And I felt that I would have been hypocritical to teach civics in that respect. And I felt much more comfortable teaching other subjects, which I am teaching right now.
Mm-hmm.
I feel badly for the fact that the current governor, when he came in, he campaigned on a agenda of let's bring civics in the classroom, but he seems to have forgotten that that was already in the classroom. Jeb Bush, my buddy, my bestie. Oh my gosh, did I say with a straight face? Because let's go back here. Because I don't want people like using my stuff out of context here. Jeb Bush is not my bestie. I used to remember at college in Gainesville, I used to be kicking his signs. Kicking his signs. No. I mean, I allegedly was kicking his signs.
Allegedly.
I was statute of limitations. I was relocating his signs to more visible locations. I was being altruistic. Right? I was relocating the signs. I didn't kick any signs over. That was somebody else. But I remember I loved it. And remember the old Hecoon when Lawton Childs, St. Lawton, the second to last Democratic governor of Florida, because I love trivia nights. And remember this: if you want to get somebody on a $50 bet, say, who was the last Democratic governor of Florida? And if they say Lawton Childs, you just got yourself $50. Because of course it's the late Buddy McKay, who was the last Democratic governor, who was like governor for like an hour and a half. Like you could heat a hot pocket, and the next thing Jeb Bush was coming in. But long story short, I love the fact that the Heat Coon lives in me. And long story short, I'm going to advocate, and I'm hoping that we do bring back reason and civility and objectivity to our civics to make sure our standards do reflect the truth and not an agenda that's ideological.
Yeah. So that being said, what keeps you going when it feels like it's stacked against you or against teachers when it comes to teaching? I know I've been following some of the school board in Duval County, and boy, something else. And just like you mentioned the other night, the city council shot down emergency funding for our schools, and that's still going to be going forward with referendum, I believe. So, what is it that keeps you going when it feels like you're getting burnt out?
What keeps me going is that I don't want to get maudlin here, but there's times when I do feel that all is lost. Again, that woe is me mode. But I do know that my students are my community. Over the summer, I had a student having a mental health crisis and reached out to me on Facebook privately, and that's what keeps me going. What keeps me going is not my teaching necessarily, but my community and building that community. I had recently given some condolences to a couple. I picked up some lunch. One of my former students, who was unfortunately a victim of gun violence, worked at a restaurant that I stopped by on a irregular basis. But I reached out and shared my condolences because that child was my boy, and he's gone. And that's what keeps me going. It's like, I'm here, and what am I here for? And that's what keeps me going. What keeps me going is that Mayport took in this townie. I was driving 45 minutes from Riverside to Atlantic Beach to teach at the school I teach at. And mind you, I have to say this: the opinions reflected in this video are mine alone and do not reflect anything of any organization I belong to or work for. There you guys wanted to say that. But seriously, what keeps me going is the community. What keeps me going is that I know I'm not just there to teach, but I'm there to attend weddings. I've performed weddings. I've been a pallbearer at one student's funeral service. I know, having tenure, a professional services contract, that I know I don't have to worry about begging for renewal of my contract every year. So I have the benefit and the privilege. I think that, and this, I believe that everyone should stand in that. If whatever privilege you have and stand in, please use that to leverage change in this society. I use my male privilege to leverage change in our society, to advocate for the young women in our society. I've been an advocate for women who needed to exercise their right to choose. I have reached out through my school newspaper in college to advocate for. There was a situation where girls were discriminated against based on the color of their skin in the girls' dorm, and we found ways through through our editorials in our school newspaper and through our articles and our investigative journalism to seek a change in how they ran the girls' dorm. And I'm so pleased that the young men and women who spoke in the Jacksonville City Council are doing exactly what Generation X had always dreamed of before we sold out. Come on, you know what I'm talking about. Because you got that one friend that you've had since high school, and your Facebook friends, and you hang out and all that stuff. But then all of a sudden, you unfriended each other. You're Generation X, but the solidarity disappeared. They turned into boomers, damn it. Darn it. Gosh darn it.
You didn't say damn.
You know what I'm talking about? You've got that one friend that's always spouting off about the latest, what they heard from their dad who saw Newsmax at the barbershop. But we're the enemy. And also, let me throw this in before we close. I know we're reaching the end, but mutual aid is important in a time of need, and that's what keeps being always mutual aid. Because I've learned that we support each other. It takes a village. Hillary, but the damn emails. But Hillary was right, even though she co-opted, of course, appropriation, and Hillary appropriated, it takes a village. But at the heart of it all, when it hits the fan, I'm there for my coworkers. It's not about just being Mr. Malcolm X wannabe. It's about the math department. These kids don't have pencils, but guess what? They got $300 shoes. So when I gather pencils from my classroom, I share them with the math department. It's about mutual aid. It's about sharing what you can share. It's about supporting who you can support, because in times of need, we need each other. And that's why we're going cattywampus right now, because in times of need, we're going away from each other. We're not coming together. We're not pulling together and finding ways to share resources, reach out with her. During the pandemic, I shared toilet paper. I go to Costco and share toilet paper with my neighbors. It doesn't have to be grandiose. You don't have to be freaking Nancy Pelosi with $500 billion checks and ice cream in the freezer to do things.
Yeah, that's
You
right.
know, it's the grassroots. I mean, the Tea Party and, of course, the MAGA movement started out as grassroots, albeit AstroTurf, mind you. AstroTurf, but we can be the real
Sure.
the real grassroots. And I'm hoping, and next year, I'm hoping the media looks at this. In 1966, African American students actually went on strike to protest against segregation and lack of resources for Black schools. I'm hoping that the media looks into this, because when we look at the power of the people and look beyond the traditional media and the traditional perspectives, I'm a Howard Zinn sort of guy in the situation. We've got to look deeper into the depths of the unspoken voices in our history. And that's another reason why I don't teach civics, because I swear I'd be nailed to a wall right now. I have tenure, but I'm not bulletproof. But we
Right.
have to tell the stories. We've got to tell the stories and pass them on, so that those I might not see it today, but our kids in my classroom and their kids, they can make it happen. You know, Martin Luther
Sure.
King is not here today. He did not see where we are today. We have to be selfless and understand that we're building something, and that's something that we liberals tend to be, and progressives tend to be very short-sighted on. We have to build something, and we just can't wait for the presidential election year to just jump in and say, "Ooh, I'm here, I'm making a difference," and all of a sudden disappear when you lose and take your toys and go home.
Mhm.
Winning is a path. Winning is not. It's well, Rose Kennedy said this. Life is a marathon, not a sprint. We need to stop sprinting between elections and do the marathon and be it for the long freaking haul.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Hey, John, when you do feel like it's time for you to relax. I understand you do a lot of travel. And how does that travel inform you in your worldview as an educator and as a citizen?
And choo choo,
Two
you like
things.
trains, right?
Yeah, buddy. Two things. Amtrak all the way. And by the way, we need to put Amtrak back downtown. Okay, that's
Yes.
a hill I'm going
Yes,
to die
yes,
on.
yes,
Mayor Deegan,
yes.
let's move Amtrak back downtown. Let's move it
Yes.
back, because it's been gone in the middle of nowhere for 50 gosh darn years. And
Yeah.
trust me, mobility, connectivity will make a difference when we move the Amtrak back downtown. JTA, come on, wake up. It's right there. Come on,
Absolutely.
get in the game. But my
Absolutely.
experiences on the train, I've been to on long-term train trips, which were amazing. I went from Jacksonville to Los Angeles back in 2005 on the way to NEA convention, and it was amazing to not just see the country, but also to enjoy the company of people. I took the
Hmm.
train from New York to Seattle one year, and I met wonderful people, wonderful families, and I got to see a tapestry of what our country is about, not just what we see on the media about red versus blue, blah, 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 but seeing fellow travelers, so to speak, fellow
Hmm.
travelers sharing the same destination or different destinations. And I love the fact it was like a little moving cocktail party, because people come on, get off, get on, come on, get off. And it was relaxing. It was peaceful. And people, well, why don't you fly? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm a teacher. Why would I take the summer off if I'm not gonna just travel, with a sense of joy,
Experiences.
and not being patted down and cavity searched, every 5 seconds, and having to pay for
Right.
every gosh darn bag I put on board with me. Just breathe, relax, and hostels too. I highly endorse hostels. Whenever I travel, they're low cost, and that I'm able to commune with people. What I do enjoy about hostels, and this is one thing I do, I'm an introvert, but hostels, I get to meet people from all around the world. I met a guy in
Hmm.
Montreal from Australia. We're still Facebook friends. He's got his second child on the way, and I'm so proud of the connection we made. He saw his first snow in Montreal. I have a little habit
Nice.
of anytime I go to a hostel, I go to a little local store and get some wines and cheeses. We have a little social and we enjoy each other's company. I think as an introvert, I think I have the benefit of interacting with people, but knowing if I screw up, that I will never see them again for the rest of my life on this earth if I don't have to.
I know you mentioned that your friend saw snow for the first time in Montreal. I went on a mission trip to Africa several years ago, and one of the nurses that was on I'm a retired ICU nurse. And one of the nurses that was on the trip with us, we knew that she had walked down. We were in this little German. It was a hostel, really, but it was a hotel, and it was out in the middle of nowhere. It was about maybe 500 yards from the ocean, and we went down there. A couple of us, we got to sitting around chatting, and we decided to walk down to the beach. And she was sitting on one of the rocks. It was one of those rocky beaches. She was sitting on one of the rocks crying because that was the first time. And this is a girl in her 30s. She was crying. That was the first time she'd ever seen the ocean because she's from the Midwest.
Wow.
She's from the Midwest. And
Mm-hmm.
so she had never seen the ocean at all. And that was her first ride on an airplane and flew to Africa.
Yeah, wow.
It does mean something when an adult or a child for that matter, but it means something coming from an adult when they see something that grand for the very first time. It just
It definitely does.
Charles, before we close it out, have you got any final thoughts for us?
Yeah, my final thought is, Meeks, you are such an empathetic, amazing person. I know I'm supposed to talk about something else, not about who's on the screen right now, but bloody heck, this was such a great interview. I seriously, like, you had cockles in my heart of warmth because of the stuff that you said.
Thank you. Thank you.
John, have you got anything for us to go out on?
Well, my closer is this. We need to promote equity in education. If we want to go back to the fundamentals of making sure that every child is meant to succeed in the dream of President Lyndon Baines Johnson in 1965, and going forward, and our communities, there's still inequity. Brown versus Board of Education didn't fix it all. No decision to fix it all. What's going to fix it all is involvement in our communities. We cannot wait to be reactive. I love the Atlantic Beach community. They galvanized, the different communities that galvanized to protect their schools. But the sad part is we shouldn't wait until the bulldozer is at our door. We shouldn't wait till the wolves are at our door. We have to advocate and be proactive on a daily basis to let our elected officials know that we're watching them, to ensure that they're funding us and not putting their thumb on the scale in favor of charter and private schools. As a public school advocate for years and years and years, it is my dream that our state abide by our constitutional prerogative that is the paramount duty of the state to provide fair and equitable funding for all of our public schools without fear or favor of any private interests who have their interests at heart, not the interests of the general public at heart. And we want to build a better state that works for all and not just for the mighty who want to engage in real estate scams and want to pull the wool over the eyes of our state legislature, which has gerrymandered districts and is basically choosing their own electors to keep themselves in this self-perpetuating machine, which will never end until we stand up and speak out and advocate and fight back. I'm here. Take my hand. All of you educators in Florida, take our hand, and we're going to be a mighty force to affect great change for our students and for our future.
Well said. Well said. Well, I'll tell you, it has been more than fun. It's been an honor talking to you tonight, John. You had some wonderful things to say, and I'm so glad you could make it. And you're welcome back on this show anytime.
Thank you.
Seriously.
Thank you. And I'm gonna take up on that. I'll be there so much. You're like, when are you gonna stop coming? Oh my gosh, what's wrong with him? It's like he's like Bill Murray on steroids. What's the deal? What's that one film he was in? But no, believe me, you'll see me again because I love this venue and I love the fact that we had a chance to have this no holds barred conversation about what really matters. And I don't want to talk about the fluff and the gossip and the crap that everybody talks about everywhere else. We're solid. We've got substance. And if you want the fluff, I'm not going to judge you. But come back to our side of town, and we'll move. We'll move mountains.
Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Well, that's a wrap. Another fantastic episode of the podcast. You can find us on all the social media platforms, wherever you surf, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter X, Threads, wherever. Don't forget to like, share, and comment. And on our YouTube channel, don't forget to like, share, comment, and smash that subscribe button. If you're streaming audio for the podcast, you can find us wherever you get your favorite podcast programs. In the meantime, I like to tell everybody, take care of yourselves and each other. Until next time, peace.